Power on.
Real-time Sovryn is go.
Woo, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, here with you once again for Real-Time Sovryn. Or is it a TIE Fighter Renegades? Because I'm being joined by none other than my brother, Robin Freebeard. And man, we might be talking about Star Wars for the last time, because after what we talk about, Star Wars might be dead. That is the claim.
For like the best reasons too.
Right? I know. It's like, no, it died because it like ascended. So it's not here anymore.
Right.
I think it's a great way to say it. Star Wars has ascended.
Andor is risen.
Andor is risen. Space Jesus is here. All right.
That's what you should name this episode.
Space Jesus or Andor is risen?
No, Andor is risen.
Yeah. You got it. So, yeah, we are going to do our season 2 review, or maybe postmortem is actually the accurate term to use, but the season 2 review of Andor. What some are claiming to be the single greatest moments of Star Wars ever in history. Blows everything else Star Wars out of the water. We're going to do a big breakdown on this. There's so much to talk about. We're actually going to share some other interesting commentary that has been out there, because this has been, well, to use a colloquialism, in some ways this show separates the men from the boys. I don't like to use that colloquialism, but I'm going to use it, and because I like that it's derogatory towards people who think they might be some kind of alpha male. What do I mean by that? We'll get into it. Because there are some crybabies out there in the manosphere about all this. So anyway, Rob, I mean, I guess let's just open this right up. You know, I mean, it's a 12 episode run. Of course, we already started our review. We were already very positive in a previous Real-Time Sovryn / TFR that we did. I mean, how do you, after season 2 in its totality, like, how do you feel about this? Is this the greatest Star Wars ever?
That's a tough question, because I mean, like, there are still other moments in other Star Wars properties that, like, I kind of feel hit higher highs than some of what Andor does. But like in its totality, yeah, it's probably the single greatest Star Wars product in existence after TIE Fighter.
Good point. Thank you for that caveat. Damn straight. And this is coming off the heels. I mean, we're at the 45th anniversary as of this recording, of Empire Strikes Back releasing, almost to the day. And I think for most people, that is generally considered like the greatest moment. Like, that usually hits Star Wars fans that have at least been around for a while. I make no arguments against that, or there's no debate in my mind. So regardless, yeah, I agree. I love your point and your further caveat about, like, there's better moments maybe in Star Wars. And I'm sure I'm going to guess that the first thing that came to your mind was, Mandalorian, Luke Skywalker, coming out the first time. Or what would you say maybe was a better moment, if you could think of one?
So my number one, and I've said this before, so if you're a TFR fan, you'll remember this, is still Ahsoka versus Vader in season 2 of Rebels.
Oh yeah. The finale for Rebel season 2 with Ahsoka.
Yeah. Like when they overlay Matt Lanter's voice with James Earl Jones, that kind of like, it just closed a circle for me that it always felt, open and unfinished.
Sure. Fair. Yeah. So the interesting thing I think being brought up here is that the example you gave and the example I gave are examples of the, shall we say, more mystical aspects of Star Wars, the more spiritual aspects of Star Wars. And, Andor is neither. Like, I mean, it is not mystical. I mean, other than we do, and spoiler alerts, folks, we have a force healer in it but that was like such a low key, so rare. I mean, it was just treated more shamanistic than, really Jedi or Sith or anything in that paradigm. Yeah, like this is a very grounded, very realist version, of Star Wars, for sure. And man, I mean, again, I'm not going to call it the greatest ever either, because just like you, yes, TIE Fighter would always takes top marks and can never be defeated. Like it's just not possible. And it's actually that's going to color a point that I want to get into later as we talk about this. But boy, is it up there. Like it's in the top 3 for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah. Well, I'm going to leave the simplicity at that. I mean, there's because like, where does the Thrawn trilogy sit in all this? But that's a whole other. Again, that's going to color more what we talk about later.
Right.
What do you got?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean that's when you start talking about the old EU stuff, you have to start asking, well, what is Star Wars, today, and there's a good chunk of the fandom out there that would say no, that stuff is not Star Wars anymore.
Those people can I don't know, go shit themselves, but yeah.
No, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just I'm just saying it's Star Wars is a very factional, divided sort of culture.
Yeah, for sure.
And part of that is just because of A, the breadth of the work, and B, the size of the fandom. I mean, it is just it's so huge that you could almost say it encompasses, several genres.
Yeah, right. I mean, like, it's a culture so large, it's like Christianity, where it actually has different denominations,
Right.
Like,
absolutely.
Right. And you almost literally have like Protestant reformations within it. Like you have civil wars that go on, ironically, since the whole damn thing is about a civil war. But
right. Yeah, I mean, it's so weird because, you and I grew up in a time before the prequels, and there was really only the one Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then we started getting novels, and then that was here again kind of another iteration of Star Wars. And then we got the prequels, and you had people who hated the prequels, and still to this day. I tell you what's really weird for me, having gone basically through the entire life of Star Wars, literally since I was born. It's so weird watching the prequel lovers fight with the sequel lovers.
Yeah. Because like that battle happened before,
Right.
I mean, and I was there. Like, yeah, I know. I mean, I was one of the prequel defenders. I mean, ironically, I've come full circle now, and I'm like, but
and I'm the complete opposite. Whereas, like for me, I didn't like, I liked episode 1, but episode 2 kind of soured it a little bit for me. And I did like episode 3, but like overall, like, I felt like the original trilogy was a superior product.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and well, it still is. But
and here again, like the Clone Wars, the animated series kind of changed my perception of the prequels. So I've kind of come around to appreciating the prequels more than I did when I first saw them.
Sure. Yeah, totally. And I think that's happened for many. And I mean, ultimately, like, I applaud that, because I mean, the Clone Wars is awesome. Like it is the place to get some of the best Star Wars ever. I mean, even to get to that high watermark that you mentioned, with Rebels season 2 with Ahsoka, you needed to create Ahsoka, and that's Clone Wars all the way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like that moment really doesn't, I mean, it still means something, but it means far less without the context of the Clone Wars.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So something I want to touch on, I mean, we already said, no, look, this belongs in like the holy trinity of Star Wars, like Andor is that fucking good. And what more can you say beyond that, right? Like, I mean, we will get into more. We will, we'll get sweaty and nitty gritty on it, for sure. But one of the narratives going around about Andor, and it's meant to be a positive, and I get that. Okay, so it's actually kind of Like, but to me, it feels like one of those things where it's like, okay, you're right for the wrong reasons. And that is, they're like, oh, Star Wars is finally grown up. Star Wars finally has, an adult version, an adult, segment, an adult audience, and so on. And that's complete horseshit. Now, it's true that this is adult Star Wars, no doubt about it. And we'll talk about this later. I mean, you have a rape scene. I mean, there's so much. Like, yes, this absolutely is adult. You're not wrong about that. The wrong part is that, oh, finally Star Wars is an adult property. And it's like, no.
Well,
Star Wars is.
These people aren't saying what they mean. What they really mean is that this is kids exclusionary Star Wars.
Yeah. So that might make a little more sense. Okay. Like I can buy that because Timothy Zahn made adult Star Wars. Like, I mean, this is, we have, when you go into a Barnes and Noble today, and I don't know why anyone would, the selection's terrible, but when you go into a Barnes and Noble today, and you go to like the young adult section, like that seems to be the most popular type of book or something. This concept of like and they're huge. They're like these really, really thick books, whatever, the Divergent series, I don't know, Hunger Games, whatever horseshit. I don't think people get that, like that kind of book didn't really exist back in the day, like in the 80s and 90s. Like the idea that it was at a reading level, whatever that means, of young adult, I think that's a very strange like category in the first place. But that reading,
I think Harry Potter kind of created that category.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Whereas
with that.
it didn't exist when the Zahn novels came out, and
right.
there were novels that were geared towards I would say a teenage audience, but it wasn't really an established genre.
Well,
and even if it was, it wasn't something that ever appeared on a New York Times bestseller list.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is what like, and you didn't get on the New York Times bestseller list unless you were an adult novel.
Right.
And that's what Heir to the Empire did. It was number one.
Yeah. I mean, the Thrawn trilogy took number one each time. And we had a book a year of that. Yeah, I mean, you had the Young Jedi Knight Chronicles. You had even younger books than that. Like you had all of these. But they were really thin. Like, I mean, they were like
they're like novelettes.
Right. Yeah, they were like novelettes. It's a great way of putting it. Okay. But I think this is what people forget is that no, there were incredibly adult Star Wars stories 30 years ago. And not just the novels, but also the comics. The comics, some of the shit that happened in the comics were fucked up that happened in Dark Horse. And that's so I'm like, I get pissed about it because it's like, well, we're going to talk about it more as we get into like analysis on all of this, because I think it's another area that people completely miss. Like, I guess maybe should we just get right into it, talking about Damian Walker's review? Or I mean, do you have any commentary on what I had said? Like, do you agree that Star Wars has been adult previously, or?
I think Star Wars has always. Okay. I think Star Wars always appealed to a wide demographic. I will say that I do think George Lucas made Star Wars for kids.
Sure.
And it's interesting because in many ways, it's the same messaging that Andor was trying to do it, but George was trying to be, I don't know, maybe a little more low key about it, or just, I mean, the way I see it was there wasn't really, we were coming out of the Vietnam War when Star Wars came out.
Yep.
And I think George was definitely trying to send a message of, hey kids, let's not do this in the future. Let's give them a message that, like war's bad, fascism is bad, the kind of things. And it was a message that the country, really needed. Like, and unfortunately, like, I think that has kind of gotten lost until Andor.
Yeah. So I think you're right. And I mean, caveat point that George Lucas's Star Wars was more made for kids. I mean, Timothy Zahn's and Tom Veitch's and even name that shouldn't be said, KJA, like all these other guys, like they were writing for the grownups, the people who like saw the movies in theaters as kids and then they grew up. So George's was definitely meant for kids, like no argument there. And even, the video games, which are another huge part of all this. We'll talk about more of that later. We're geared, skewed younger, but what do you got?
The 1977 Star Wars, A New Hope, like that was still hugely popular with adults. I mean, you look at the premieres and it's all people in their teens and 20s and 30s. Yeah.
No, totally. I agree. And like, I agree with you too, that George Lucas had some political commentary, like baked into A New Hope, even A New Hope. I think that it got smothered really by like the Force, by the mystical aspects. So I think what's really interesting, and some people have even made this comment recently, that, really we have like a hidden trilogy in Star Wars now, right? Like we have Andor, Rogue One, and A New Hope is actually its own trilogy. And right. I dig that concept, and it actually becomes like a great series at that point. Or, I mean, it makes A New Hope like shine brighter.
So you finally agree with me. Mark this one on the calendar, folks.
This episode's never coming out. Forget it.
I made this point to you after we finished watching the last episode of Andor 2, and you scoffed at me.
Well, no, I'm not saying it makes A New Hope a good movie. I'm just saying it makes it shine brighter. That's all.
Oh, okay. I see. We're pedaling, backpedaling.
I want to make sure I get this out quick, and really, then I do want to keep going on this train of thought. Make sure, folks, that you watch the credits for the last episode of Andor season 2, not because of an end credit scene like we had in season 1, but because of the music change when the theme for the Death Star battle, in A New Hope starts playing. Holy shit. I mean, like, it just sets you up. It hypes you up. Like you're ready to go watch Rogue One, go watch A New Hope, watch this all in one sitting, very, very exciting. It was one of the best moments of the whole season, in my opinion, was just that music change at the end, which, Star Wars has a history of doing that, right? Like with The Phantom Menace, where at the end you hear the little piano of the Imperial March, even though Vader hasn't, come into being yet. Anyway.
But Brian, you wouldn't enjoy that music if you didn't like A New Hope.
All right, so moving to what we were talking about. It's great. It's a great movie. Just compared to the rest, it sucks, but it's still better than most other movies. Like I'll give it that. Regardless, like Annie Hall deserved the Academy Award. Okay, so that out of the way. I agree. Like I said, I think that it basically, the political messaging got completely buried by the Unitarian spirituality that existed, particularly within A New Hope. Because, I mean, you were, just quick, you were there too. Most of the commentary books that existed, and I can remember there weren't many, but the few that were out there were all about the Force. And everybody always talked about the Force. Nobody talked about space Nazis and like the political aspects and everything. What do you got?
I mean, I kind of agree with you, but I'd actually say that Kenner played a bigger role than that than anybody.
Oh, yeah. Well, all right. Look, the merchandising like killed any seriousness of Star Wars in the first.
I mean, that's why everybody perceives it as, children's product.
Yeah. So, well, let's talk about Damian Walker here. Let's get into this. And I will link in the show notes. He actually made like a trilogy, his own little trilogy of videos about Andor season 2. He has a podcast called Science Fiction with Damian Walker. Rob, you're the one that introduced me to this. I was not familiar with him previously. I do think the videos are very good. They're certainly worth watching. I would quibble with some things, and also I would say some of what he says is unoriginal. Not just unoriginal, but it's antiquated, as in the sense that, or I mean, it's not antiquated, it's ancient, in that he's parroting things that I've heard Asimov and Harlan Ellison himself say many times. And that's not to knock him at all. I mean, like, good for you for quoting Ellison and Asimov or being in line with their way of thinking.
I mean, like, and everything old is new again. I mean, like,
sure.
Who still reads those guys?
Yeah, well, right. Yeah. So, but this is, I mean, the first thing I want to get into with what Dame, or do you want to give like an overview of about what said, or do you want me to get in some commentary on his thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he goes on a bunch of different, directions with his commentary. So, I mean, it's kind of like, it's hard to do an overview of that entire video.
Yeah, sure. Because it's 30 minutes on its own, just the one.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, his point, or again, he has a lot of points, like you said. One of his points, and I think it's worth giving him credit. Like I applaud his videos. I'm not really knocking them. I just think he misses some things. One of his points is that Star Wars is fast food science fiction. Now that's something like, and he compares it to McDonald's, like, and we'll get into the McDonald's analogy in a second, because it's kind of the most important point perhaps of what he makes. Okay. Literally Harlan Ellison has said that, like he said that, 35 years ago. So, and that's fine. Like, again, there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm just saying that, like, the idea that like hardcore, or like hard science fiction, actually Harlan hated the word sci-fi, hated the word science fiction. He said it sounded like crickets fucking or something. But his favorite word was speculative fiction.
I knew it. Yeah, I was going to say, what about speculative fiction? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what he liked, and he shortened it to SF. Anyway, neither of those I don't think ever really took off. And you'd only hear it whenever somebody was like at a meeting with, or in an event with Harlan or something, because otherwise he'd yell at you if you said any different. But we loved him for it. So anyway, it's not untrue. And Asimov said similar things. And so for Damian Walter, to make the same point, like, yes, it is fast food science fiction. So is Independence Day. There's plenty of examples of this. Okay. And that doesn't necessarily that doesn't inherently make it bad. Okay.
Right.
And I'm not sure that Damian Walter would make that argument either. Go ahead.
I do think his point is cogent, though. Is that it's become more of a corporate product since Disney's takeover.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas before, like, I would, I'd say with the George Lucas movies, it was still, under the control of a single visionary, expanded universe aside. And I do think there needs to be room for people to like tell their own stories within that universe with complete freedom.
Sure. Yeah. Again, I agree with this premise. I think he falls prey to, because while he's saying all of that, he's really describing that like the people that are really into this are somehow infantile. Now, he doesn't say that so directly, but it's really like the point that whenever this example of Star Wars is fast food, I go ahead.
I want to just alter that just a little bit. That
sure.
I see what you're saying. I don't think he's saying that Star Wars itself is inherently infantile. I think he's saying that a lot of the Star Wars corporate product appeals to the infantile.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he's getting okay. I mean, I'll give him that. I'll give that conceit. But part of what, whenever, like, look, I mean, and hey, I talked to Harlan Ellison about this, and I told him, I remember having the conversation with him. I said, yeah, but Harlan, because I've always been into Star Wars my whole life, and so when I'm talking to some of these authors, I mean, Greg Bear was actually sitting right next to me, talk about, hard science fiction. Greg Bear was sitting right there with us, and I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand it. It's the video games. Now that, of course, would set him off. Like, video games, what the fuck, even though he ended up like being behind one of the greatest video games ever made, that being I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream. To piss off video gamers by making it so that you couldn't win. And, I just remember Carlin, like, being shook and like going back and just being like, what? Timothy Zahn wrote Star Wars, and like I mentioned, Vonda McIntyre wrote Star, and he'd be like, what? Like he had no idea that. And that's, but these are people that he revered, that he knew were killer fucking writers, right? They might not be Dan Simmons, but they were great. And that's my point, is that the people who like are so, the gatekeepers and the people that are like so, crazy about Star Wars, especially ones that existed before the prequels even existed. This is the Star Wars that we really grew up with, was West End Games, was Timothy Zahn and even KJA and Tom Veitch and all these other, like Dark Horse Comic, all that. Like that was Star Wars for us. Okay.
Yep.
The
Sacred Jedi texts.
Yeah, right. The Sacred Jedi texts. And this is what I never hear a YouTube commentator talk about that. Like they never understand that. Well, first off, they never understand that the secret sauce of Star Wars is that it's cool. Like the cool factor is where it's all at. I don't think people get that in their head.
There are some that talk about it, but they kind of talk about it in kind of like a, I know the deep lore. This is like, hidden knowledge that only I have. And it really kind of pisses me off that they treat it that way.
Right.
Because I'm kind of just like, don't quote the deep lore to me. I was there when it was written.
Exactly. Right. Literally. Yes. Yeah. And so that's the thing. Like, again, and because it's very subconscious, I think, like, because we see Star Wars as like all of these things, that, like it doesn't register for us. Wait a minute. What actually made Star Wars great? Oh, it was the fact that the Super Nintendo games or the PC games or the N64 games were like so on the cutting edge of, showing us like games of game evolution and, bending reality and all of this. Like we just, most Star Wars, especially Star Wars fans our age, in their 40s or whatever, they don't realize it. They forgot that, like, wait, no, actually maybe I would have left the original trilogy behind, 20 years ago, but they didn't, because of the video games, the comics, and the novels, which all of which were cutting edge stuff, either because they were already adult long before Andor, or because they're on the cutting edge of what was getting developed.
Well, I'll say this too, and that's something we brought up a long time ago when we still reviewed books, comics, and Star Wars video games. And that was, back in the 90s, the scope of the Star Wars expanded universe was so much bigger.
Yes.
Whereas when Disney took over, everything, all the comics and all the novels seemed to be on a much smaller scale within pockets of the Star Wars universe that were very self-contained and didn't leak out into other areas of the universe. Yeah.
And I mean, I think a part of that, it has to do with the time, as in like the time. It's not, I mean, it is Disney's fault regardless, but it's also a product of the time where, like, no, you don't write a complete story, because you always have to be prepared that what you wrote might be popular, and so you have to leave it open for a sequel so we can make more money off of it, blah blah blah. I think
it was also a very intentional decision by Lucasfilm and the story group, was to keep these authors on a short leash. Yeah.
I'm saying that, like, well, to some degree, Disney did exactly this, actually, so it proves the point. If Disney was running Star Wars in 1994, they would never have let Timothy Zahn kill off Thrawn. Like, they just wouldn't. They'd be like, no, you can't do it. As to where that's one of the powerful, amazing things of that book, is because this guy is so goddamned incredible, and he gets offed. It's like, wow. I mean, I didn't want him to die either, but it happened.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Right. I mean, I actually, at the time, a few years ago, like, I applauded Disney for keeping him alive. But also I can't deny the impact of the finality of what happened to him. At the time, like it just it's what makes those books, part of what makes those books so memorable. And so, yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that like Disney but I mean, it's not just Disney, it's everything today. Nobody's allowed to die. Nothing is allowed to end. I mean, like you can't, they don't let you do it. So that's its own problem. I mean, I think Disney's still been kicking themselves that they killed off Jyn Erso. I don't think they had any idea that Rogue One was going to be a huge deal. And I'm actually surprised we didn't get to see Jyn Erso in season 2, by the way. that shocked me. I was looking for that. But regardless, I mean, go ahead.
I mean, I kind of agree with you. At the same time, I don't feel like the story really needed it. It felt like it would have been a little fan servicey.
Yeah. No, I agree. It would have been. I mean, I'm glad it didn't happen. I'm just saying I'm shocked that it didn't.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like, when they talked about, the show initially lasting for, 4 or 5 seasons. And, I would have loved to have had more Andor and for it to be more coming in the future. But at the same time, I don't think Andor would hit as hard as it does on, being that much content.
Yeah. Well, one of the points that Damian Walter makes in his video is that, like, there's no way Disney would have let that go on, for much longer. Like,
I keep saying I'm shocked that this happened at all.
Oh yeah, no, you said
it is so subversive.
Yes.
Shockingly so.
Yeah, I mean, you said that to Ellen and I multiple times when we were over at the museum watching, it with you. Like, how did they let this get made? Like,
yeah. Well, and the scuttlebutt is like Kathleen Kennedy went to bat for him.
That's unbelievable.
Other people, Lucasfilm hated it.
That's unbelievable.
Like there are people who are saying that, like insiders have talked to me and said that, Filoni and crew don't like Andor.
That's so insane.
Yeah, I know, but it does kind of like I'm not going to say Kathleen Kennedy is by any means without flaws. But I've long said a lot of the things that get put upon her, she gets blamed for. I don't think she was necessarily the primary decision maker behind it.
Yeah.
Whereas Tony Gilroy is directly crediting her for getting this show made. So, the fandom that absolutely just vehemently hates her is going to have to square that circle somehow.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 issues with Kathleen Kennedy, because I mean, the one is, or not issues, there's two aspects. Like, the one is she has greenlit some of the coolest shit we've ever experienced in Star Wars, flat out. And yes, she greenlit it. Like Rogue One, she was the one who let John Knoll sit in front of her and explain, and she said, "Yep, go ahead and make that movie." Kudos. like great. I think the issue is that, like, that hands-off approach, like so many things, can have good results and bad results. Like, for sure. She's like, yeah, okay, bring in the people who made The Acolyte, bring in the people who did this, and it's her, like, because and so it's just a double-edged sword. And ultimately, I'd rather have somebody in charge who is hands-off in that sense, than the opposite, I think. Because
but I mean, and we've seen the opposite too. I mean, how many different directors have they fired? How many projects have they canceled? I mean, that's pretty hands-on.
Yeah.
Announce stuff and then cancel it behind the scenes. And like I said, here again, I don't think she's the primary decision maker. I mean, like, I still think that Colin Trevorrow, got fired for completely spurious reasons. That didn't have to do with, he had anything to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, and this is without like deep diving on the idea that Well, clearly Disney didn't want to, like, they wanted to get away from established characters as quickly as they could and have their own characters, probably for marketing reasons or whatever else, or at the very least, J.J. Abrams was certainly pushing for that.
Yeah, but then they put Dave Filoni in charge, and he's all about established characters. I mean, some people would say to the detriment of Star Wars that he's too much about established characters.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, because this is a claim that, you know, that Damien Walter makes, that he thinks Filoni is part of the corporate slop, that he's put in this high position because he will churn out exactly what Disney wants, something that just keeps people coming back for a little bit more and it plays in the background like a Netflix movie. I mean, what do you think about that, Rob?
I think he's a little too harsh on Filoni personally, but I do see his point. You know, there are certain, I mean, like, The Mandalorian is no doubt, I wouldn't say it's slop, but it's definitely Star Wars fast food, like, you know, refined and you know, fed intravenously.
Yeah, I mean, it feels very much like the original trilogy. That was its strength, and I guess maybe some would say a weakness as well. You know, I would agree with that. I thought he was a little too harsh on Filoni as well. I mean, if he's just commenting on like business acumen, like, sure, like why would Filoni quit this job?
Right? Yeah.
This is guaranteed money for the rest of his life. Why the fuck wouldn't you cash that check? You know what I mean? Come on.
Well, not only that, I mean, he's a fan too. I mean, I always come back to the story about how he got hired, because he was working on Avatar: The Last Airbender, the cartoon, and you know, he got the call and he thought it was a joke. Yep. And then he called back and he's like, "Oh no, I'm the guy. Yeah, no, you're right. I'm the guy. You have no idea how much I'm the guy." Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and he does have, you know, the deep understanding of like Star Wars, you know, thematically. I mean, and he is the fan. Like,
I mean, you'll go back and watch some of those behind the scenes features for The Mandalorian that got released, you know, in between the seasons, and like he lays down some really kind of deep thematic beats about the prequels,
right?
That most people don't pick up on.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, you know, one of the most, to me, one of like Filoni's best roles really is everything that was great in real Star Wars, that people often miss, that he is the one that's like that he's the reason the EU might still be alive, not just because it sells Legends copies of, you know, books and novels, but he's the guy that's actually keeping the EU alive. He's the guy who hadn't any clue who Thrawn was, you know, to even bother to bring him back.
I mean, here again, you have different factions within, you know, the Star Wars, you know, fandom, and there's certainly that kind of, you know, faction of EU purists who would say that, you know, Filoni is polluting their, you know, pure, you know, pristine product, which is, I mean, like, nothing in Star Wars is perfect, and it shouldn't be.
Right.
But at the same time, like, and I also think, you know, Dave is really good about communicating some of the like really deep primary, you know, themes in Star Wars, but packaging it like, you know, in a sugar coating.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I mean, you know, contrast that with Tony Gilroy, who, of course, Damien Walker was, you know, like, wow, like this guy gets it, you know.
Gilroy's just like, I'm going to feed it to you raw.
Yeah. And it's avoiding getting on my knees. So, and I'm like, it's such an odd thing, because rightfully so, and you and I were included in this number, when Tony Gilroy said, what was this, 2017? You know, around when Rogue One was coming out, because he, you know, was called in to come do some rewrites or whatever. You know, he said, it's like, oh yeah, Disney brought me in because I didn't like Star Wars, or I wasn't like, I didn't, you know Star Wars, you know, and he even like, I think he came out and said like, no, I wasn't a fan. It's like, and of course later on
he even said that was his superpower, that he was not a Star Wars fan.
Right.
And I remember, we both kind of like, you know, took affront to that.
Yeah,
first.
it's like, well, fuck you, man.
Right. And funnily enough, there are, certain crybabies on the internet who are, resurrecting that interview right now and getting handedly bitch slapped for it. Because we came out afterwards and said, no, we were wrong about Gilroy. I admitted it. I was wrong. And I'm happy to be wrong.
Yeah, no, same. And I mean, even at the time, like, I had forgotten that Tony Gilroy was the writer of the original Born and Identity trilogy, which are incredible movies. I mean, fucking top tier AAA, great movies. Watch them over and over again. I mean, they're that good. And so, yeah, same. Came out and said, like, nope, I was wrong. But here's the funny thing is that Tony Gilroy, like, and I think like Damien Walters' video kind of points at this, and I think it's just the reality that, well, he wasn't a fan of Star Wars. He clearly understood the politics of George Lucas, and he actually carried them on. So ironically, his exclusion of, a lot of the supernatural aspects or the mystical aspects of the space wizardry of Star Wars is what allowed finally for George Lucas's politics that were underneath Star Wars, that were in Star Wars the whole time, to actually come to the fore. And yeah, I mean, like, I buy that narrative. I think it's incredible that it worked out that way. Go ahead.
I will even say that I think having that tension between the mystical and the more grounded aspects is actually good. So I appreciate the Force healer being in there.
Yep.
And, there's even pushback against it because, Andor perceives like the whole Jedi and Force thing is, very woo-woo.
Right.
And it's, and George did that too. He did that in A New Hope with Han Solo.
Exactly.
And here again, I think that tension works really well for the entire franchise.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, like, the amazing part is, and it's, I myself don't want to really get mystical right now, even though these days I get asked so much to do.
It's in your blood.
Well, literally, yes.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. But if there is ever a case for the idea that there is some, shall we say, divine force or essence that somehow pushes its way through art, even if you don't realize it when you're making the art, this is one of those cases, because I am stunned now with this idea of this hidden trilogy, right? That, Andor, Rogue One, A New Hope. That, like, it basically, like, you get this, okay, politics sucks, politics doesn't work. Like, you get that message all throughout Andor, like, every fucking gangster that gets any kind of power, the system has failed, it's falling apart, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And, then you end up with Rogue One, where you're kind of creating this bridge between, like, okay, is politics just going to solve this? Is espionage and all that shit just going to solve this? Until you get to A New Hope, and it's like, oh, actually, this ascendant power, of the Force, the Jedi and whatever else, that's actually what's going on. Like it's an amazing truth laid out in this hidden trilogy, thanks to Andor. Like, you get beyond the political and you realize, oh, there are spiritual forces involved, in the example of Palpatine and Luke Skywalker. And you get this incredible, like, philosophical progression that occurs, like this evolution, this personal human evolution that occurs throughout this hidden trilogy that just blows my mind. Now, I don't want to deep dive, or I mean, I can deep dive on that, but I don't need to deep dive on what all that means. It's just that it's there, and I am in awe that things worked out that way, and that you had to bring in somebody like Tony Gilroy, who did not get Star Wars, who was not a fan, to bring, to bring that into its, to use the word again, into its totality. It's amazing. Any thoughts on that, Rob? Or we can.
A number of thoughts, but I mean,
okay.
One of the first thing comes to mind is, like, I think if Disney or even the entertainment industry takes any notes from this, and I know they won't, but my hope would be is that they hire more history buffs to write shows.
Yeah.
That understands these cycles. And I really think I even going beyond this hidden trilogy idea, I think within the greater context of the entire Star Wars timeline, that it's interesting that we go through these really, I mean, they're more revolutions than anything, because like these things expand and contract. You know, the mystical aspects contract at certain times, and then they expand again, and the cycle just repeats itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think Tony understands that really well.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's just so genius. Like, the Death Star is the ultimate expression of materialism. Like, it is absolutely, like, it is that machine that just will chew up and destroy everything. It destroys entire goddamn planets. It's a planet killer,
like,
right?
Just like Partagaz says, what an appropriate turn of phrase.
Yes. Yeah, bingo. And like the realization that basically the Rebel Alliance has to go through in A New Hope, and this is where A New Hope starts to shine, because the realization is in A New Hope that Luke Skywalker has, now standing even taller as one of the greatest characters in fictional history, is that the machine, the computer, is not going to solve this. Like, I have to trust my instincts. I have to trust my humanity, my connection with the universe. And that's the only way I'm going to bring this fucker down. You know, like the politics have failed. The military has failed. Everybody's shot down. Biggs is barely alive. I don't know where the fuck Wedge is. But I've got these 2 torpedoes and a lot of faith, you know, and I hate the word faith, but I'm going to use it. I mean, it's just
friends.
Right. He has his friends, and yeah, Han Solo coming in, you know, and like it's that those 2 torpedoes become one of the most powerful state revolutionary, dare I say, even spiritual statements in the history of entertainment now, because of this, in my opinion. Like, it's that game changing in how it affects Star Wars, you know. I don't like to use the word divine hand, but like there had to be some kind of force like pushing this, because man, this came together. So I mean, any commentary on that, Rob? I mean, anything like, did it hit you in that way? Like, do you feel like this changes Star Wars forever?
Change it. I don't know if it changes Star Wars forever. It's certainly, I don't think it's going to get any better than this.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I'll tell you something. When George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney, I was like, well, I'm never going to see the end of Star Wars now, because this is going to go on forever and ever and ever, and I'm going to die, and there's still going to be more Star Wars.
In Bob Iger's own words, he said they had a 100-year plan. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. And so, but now I'm kind of like, okay, well, I've seen Andor. I can take the attitude of the knife and say it is complete because it is ended here.
Thank you, my friend and brother. Yeah. Well, this is Damien Walters' point in that, or ultimate point, I think, in that video, is that this is never going to happen again. Like, yes, yeah. In fact, I think he very much parroted you in saying, or you parroted each other in that, like, hey, Disney, like, hire some more great writers, some more historians like Tony Gilroy and whatever, but they're not going to do that. Like that's not going to happen. And like his prediction, Damien Walters' prediction, that we're going to end up with a like a prequel series to the Gorman Massacre is probably so dead on. And it's like, fuck, stop,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like don't, well, one of the best analogies to this that I ever heard was like, oh fuck, who was it? Like HBO is going to make a RoboCop series about the founding of the Detroit Police Department.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it verges on being even kind of a huge cultural problem. It's not a problem just for Disney. I think
Yeah.
to the extent that, like, if billionaires watch TV, and I don't think they really do,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they watch Andor, but if
Yeah.
they did, I think they would be really concerned about this.
Yeah, because
And
the bluff got called.
they would find any way to sort of kind of like pasteurize the message and water it down.
Yeah, I mean, because this show really, and Damian Walter brought this up, and like you have to look at it and ask yourself, like, wait, is this sustainable? Is this where we're going? Is this where we're heading? You know, and I don't think, I mean, and this was he did a video where he's like basically claiming that the Rebel Alliance were like Marxists, at least in some sense, and the idea that basically the Galactic Empire is like, the ultimate expression of capitalism. This is what has to happen. This is how it's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Like he properly called out, and I love this. He called out some of the other more popular, angry nerd YouTubers. Okay. Saying like, they can't handle it. Like, even though the show is amazing, like they can't handle it because if they go too deep, they're going to realize, oh fuck, everything's
all along.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, and I think that that's a fair point to bring up. I mean, because this show, again, yes, it is adult. I mean, I was complaining that, like, to say it's the first adult thing, fuck no, but it is adult for sure. And to go into like Star Wars Theory, like apparently lost his mind over, because there was a rape scene, in this. I mean, it's a tragedy and all that, but it's also highlighting, like, this is Star Wars, right? So there's a war going on, and rape is like a part of every single war ever. Like, it just is. What do you got, Rob?
Well, I think it's emblematic of probably one of the most important themes within Andor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's probably this is one thing that I would say is absolutely unique about the show, and that it addresses the trauma of actually having to physically resist oppression.
Yeah.
Which is all something that we're kind of grappling with at the moment. And so it's very kind of like, I mean, it's like the show has been in production for so long. It's hard to imagine that they knew how, the last year was going to turn out. But it's very in tune with the current zeitgeist of this particular moment in time.
Yeah. No, I agree. It kind of reminds me, there's a great meme where it's like a news story, and it's this, like Karen-esque woman. and it basically says, it's like, woman claims that her activism is experiencing joy, who has never done any actual form of activism. It's like, like, have you actually done anything? You know what I mean? Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. That like, look, this is, yeah. I mean, again, that's the power, like you said, of having a historian, brought in, or a history buff at the very least, to write this stuff, because they get it. I mean, like the Gorman resistance, sure, like it had, like it was very on the nose with like the French resistance during the Nazi occupation, but it also represented many other resistances, many other revolutionary groups, and you can see so many different elements, and that's something that was so powerful about it. And it's also doing Star Wars right, where Star Wars is basically like a remix of so many things, and it's this amalgamation. You just toss it all in. It's the kitchen sink. I mean, we'll talk more about what we loved about season 2 for sure, but it's like, where do we go from here? Like, everything should be compared to this, and it's all going to fail. Like I just cannot imagine it hitting the same highs as Andor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say, it can never reach these heights again. Maybe not Star Wars.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something else.
Mm-hmm.
You pointed out to me privately, when you were responding to the video, like you were saying, even people in the comments were acknowledging the parallels between Andor and Babylon 5. So,
yeah,
it's happened before. I think it can happen again. Never say never. I mean, we keep saying this, but history is unfortunately a repeating cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved, yes. And I loved seeing that just even in the comments in Damien Walker's video, or Damien Walter's video, where people are like, oh, you think Andor is subversive? You should watch Babylon 5, or you should also check out Babylon 5, or like, I can only compare this to Babylon. Like, I loved seeing that contrast.
Yeah.
Because I completely agree. Babylon 5 was wildly subversive.
Right.
It snuck in so much shit that people are still unpacking today. And I think that's going to be going on with Andor for a very long time as well.
I do too. I will say this, and here again, I'm kind of repeating myself, and I'm sorry, but I think the more condensed form of Andor gets that message across a little better than a 5-season show, 6 if you include some, crusade of Babylon 5.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying that the means of transmitting the knowledge is a little clearer.
No, it's for one thing, it's way more digestible. As I've talked about for over a decade, for my whole life, most of my life. I mean, the bulk of the reason there aren't more Babylon 5 fans is because you can't get past season 1. And like, I totally understand why people say that. I don't take it as an insult. Like,
I remember watching the pilot before they even got greenlit for the show.
Yep.
And I hated it. I to be honest with you, I hated it.
Wow.
And a lot of it was just kind of like, special effects snobbery on my part.
Oh yeah. The CGI was, right. Yeah. I was lucky to be a little bit younger and a little more forgiving. When that came out. Cause
I mean, I appreciate the entire product way more now than I used to, even the CGI, because I knew the constraints that they were under and the equipment they were using. It was amazing that they pulled off what they did.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, do we sacrifice the fidelity of the special effects to get the story told? And the answer for them was yes. And it was the right answer at the time.
And the fact that they were using, Commodore Amigas to make this, like their choice in hardware behind the show was subversive in itself.
Yes. No Macs in this house, boys. Sorry. That was so great. Yes. Good point. Netter Digital, man, they were doing some wild shit back in the day. I mean that. So I agree with you. It's more digestible. This is a point where I think a natural point for me to bring in one very few critiques. In fact, this might even be the only one of Andor season 2, and it's just of season 2. This does not apply at all to season 1. But my critique of Andor season 2 is I don't expect another show like this ever to get made again, but I really hope a show like this never gets made again in the way that it was made. Meaning that we basically got, with season 2, we got a greatest hits album. We didn't get it's like Tony Gilroy wrote 4 albums, but instead of releasing all 4 albums, he released the greatest hits. Within that, you miss some of the beats that get talked about perhaps in other songs, if this were kind of a concept album. And I think the analogy is apt. And not that I need things to be completely linear. Okay. That's fine. I can be all Ben Sisko and be like, yeah, it's not linear, but I do want more. I don't know. I'm just worried that this kind of truncated style of storytelling is going to become popular just because Andor is considered great. And go ahead.
Unfortunately, it already is.
Okay.
I mean, you remember we used to get like 20 or 30 hour-long episodes in a season of a TV show.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, yes.
And now we're down to like 8.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I'm amazed we even got 12 episodes out of this.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, the thing is, like, there's no, like, we basically exist in blurred lines of what is television and what is a movie, because I think there's a lot of things called television that are actually just movies, you know, like that's, they're made to be bingeable. Like they're made to be watched in that way. And, you know, this is another thing, whoever's decision it was, whoever was able to make the call that, no, you're going to show 3 episodes on each release day, not one. Whoever made that decision was a genius, because this is the biggest problem. I mean, it's part of the funding model for streaming services is, yeah, don't release them all at once unless you're not.
String along.
Yeah, string them along. Exactly. But when you do that, like, people, they can't keep track because they're not made. These things aren't made like TV shows. They're made like movies. And so they should be watched like movies. You know what I mean? Like they should be watched. I mean,
Andor is like 4 movies.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So that was a very smart move on Disney's part, or whoever's decision it was, to say, no, 3 episodes a night. You know, we're not going to we're not going to string this out. But yeah, I mean, so you're right in your criticism that we're already at the point where things are kind of truncated, but I still feel like there's still usually like a continuous linear flow in things. And I'm just worried we're going to get to this point where, like, oh, something will get talked about, but then, you know, like it's not something that we actually got to see in the show. And part of that leads to my concern that, like Damien Walter said, we're going to end up with, you know, a Gorman Massacre TV show at some point, right? Because they left it open for interpretation. And
right.
That annoys me. Go ahead.
He also talks about something that kind of like, it hit home really hard. And like, I have to admit, like, he talks about kind of how the world building and the development of the lore kind of, in a lot of ways, waters down and homogenizes the material. Yeah. And I love that stuff. I know you do too. I mean, like, yes. You know, we were the first kids on the block buying, you know, the Next Generation technical manual.
Yep.
When it came out. Yep. And reading it from from cover to cover.
Yes.
So we have and what he's saying is not off the mark. He's right. And I play right into it. I mean, like I said, you release any kind of technical manual or, you know, encyclopedia or concordance for any property that I like, and I you know, like, take my money. Yeah.
I agree. And I think that's starting to backfire a little. And I'll kind of explain why. I mean, because here's the thing, like, what used to be great about it was, I think you could, we as fans, you know, like guys like you and I, Rob, and gals and Z's, we could, you know, like say the technical manual for the Next Generation, like, great example. Okay. Yes. This was something that Paramount was like, okay, yeah, whatever, the show's popular. Let's push something out there, you know, but they were blind landlords. They didn't know, you know, what exactly was going on. Michael Okuda, though, was not blind. I mean, he wore glasses, but he wasn't blind. And you could read the passion, you know what I mean? And I think even unconsciously, even if we were just little kids, we're like, yeah, isn't that cool? Yeah, you know. And the problem is, like, I've noticed this with some like recent Warcraft, like World of Warcraft releases, like lore style releases. I'm trying. It's not the Legends. Maybe it's World of Warcraft Chronicles or something. They just came out with like the 4th one. Yeah. And the fan reaction to it is entirely negative. Because 1, it's like breaking pre-established canon. Right. 2, it just feels like it's contradictory within itself. And I mean, there's even people claiming like, well, I'm pretty sure this part was written by ChatGPT or something. And the point being that like now these are like established things, that are like are a part of any franchise, and that a little bit of money can be done on it. But the passion's not there. In fact, the human might not even be there anymore.
Yeah, I agree with the second part of that.
Okay.
So I agree that the passion isn't so much there anymore. And I do worry about, kind of AI, basically populating a lot of what people would call filler in these products. That's definitely a problem. That said, like I'm still kind of, pushing against this idea of how important canon is. Andor, quote, violates canon in a number of places in season 2.
Yes.
And I have come to the position that I don't give a fuck. Give me a good story. If you write me a good story, I don't give a shit. And not only that, I think this adherence to canon has caused a lot of sort of kind of like unnecessary self-harm within fandoms. There's a lot of unnecessary division and acrimony and stuff like that because of over arguments like this. And this has been going on, since we were kids.
Sure.
It's nothing unique to the current times, but I think a lot of it is really unnecessary and kind of, misses the trees for the forest. And I think Star Wars is kind of like the reason that there is a stronger adherence to what is canon in Star Wars is because we were spoiled for so long, and that they were trying to keep all this together and cohesive and compatible with, everything else that was being produced. They bent over backwards trying to make some of the stuff in the Marvel comics even work, even though people, like today don't even give a shit about those comics.
Yeah, no. Right. Even just that last statement you made, like I could unpack forever.
I know.
Because that's a whole other thing. Like,
well, we talked about this so many times before.
Yeah. But I mean, like that's not like, look, this is all right. I'm not going to go down the road. I'm just going to make the comment quick. And just that this is one of the things that depresses me is like, I am a walking science fiction encyclopedia. Nobody cares. It just doesn't matter. Like there was a time where it did though, and
I wouldn't say that I don't care at all. Like I am passionate.
Yeah.
For all of these details still. Like I said, you write a technical manual or anything, that's like intensely world building.
Yeah.
You got my money.
It's
so easy. It's so easy. I'm still passionate about these things, but I'm not going to let it get in the way of me enjoying everything else that is greater than that. And you have to, I'm sorry, but like the things that we've been talking about, the themes, the messaging is way more important than adherence to obscure details.
Yes. Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And I really do. I would much rather have a story like Andor out there than it being held off because of a comic book that came out a few years ago that actually told me how K2SO and Cassian met, or how they met for the first time.
Yeah, that comic was shit to begin with.
Well, it was. I mean, I agree. And again, it was written at a time when, like I said, I don't think Disney realized how big Rogue One was going to be or how important it was going to be to their bottom line and to their perception. So, like, I get that. I guess the one thing I would, and I know you, I know you care. Well, like when I say people didn't care, like I don't mean guys like you. You obviously do. I mean, if people are watching this on YouTube or the video on Spotify, like if you can see behind Rob, I mean, it's one of like Alexandria can kiss his ass. Like, I mean, this library, and you're only seeing one side of it. This library is massive and it is gorgeous. All right. So I know you care, right? It's just that most people, and like, you don't care because here's the paradox that is I think that is your perspective, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, you don't care because you do care. You care so much about a good story being told and a point being made and a message getting out there that you don't care, what has to die basically for that to happen, right? Within it. And so that's the paradox, is that like, you don't care it has to get wiped out because you care so much.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to bring this up because I fucking hate this movie. But Kylo Ren is right.
Kylo Ren?
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
Yeah. Well, it can certainly hold you down. Like, it's just the nature of baggage for sure. And I hear that.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're really a Sith, you're then the creed, okay? You're gonna break your bonds.
Yep. There's only passion. So So my concern is with people that they don't care. It's not that they don't care because they care so much. It's they don't care because they just don't care. Like, they're just so lackadaisical about, it's something that's just on in the background, and it means like, okay, it's something I get to talk about with people at the water cooler, but honestly, once no one else is talking about it at the water cooler, it's over. Like, it's over for me. It doesn't mean anything to me anymore. And I erase it from my memory.
Right.
And that's,
there's the opposite of that too, because you have people who are so invested in a material sense that they feel like when there's a contradictory or incongruity like that, it somehow invalidates their literal material investment into the franchise. And I think it's just silly.
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, and it really can come down to that. Like, a person could be pissed off that suddenly, well, shit, all these technical manuals I have behind me that I spent hundreds of dollars on are no longer valid. And that happened in Star Wars, And the one thing I would push back on a little bit is just that if the things that we are told mattered no longer matter, then the stakes, like, what are the stakes? Like what, you know what I mean? Like the idea that there's consistency in story is what creates stakes. It's what creates conflict. It's what creates like concern that, oh shit, but this character can't breathe in water. So if he goes into that, lake, this could all be over, but if it doesn't matter, you're like, well, we'll see what the fuck happens. Now, to be fair, to be fair, like, Doctor Who does that all the time and nobody cares. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I said before, is I think we were spoiled as Star Wars fans because no other franchise that even comes close to being on the level that Star Wars is does that.
Yeah. Not
even Star Trek.
Yeah.
Who we've mentioned several times. We've referenced several times. No, I mean, like, the Star Wars, all the Star Trek novels are not consistent with the TV shows, the movies, or even themselves.
Right. Yeah. Up until, for most of Star Trek's history, you're totally right. We had that rare relaunch in 2005 where it was like more of a consistent universe, but whatever. And of course, the late, great Peter David, which, rest in peace, brother, man. Oh, what a loss.
I know. Like, I was thinking about that so much this weekend,
Yeah.
And I went over to my bookshelf and I'm looking at Vendetta and how that novel kind of blew my little 14-year-old mind at the time.
Yeah. Well, and of course the New Frontier series, which you have the whole collection.
I still haven't even finished it.
Yeah. Oh, best, folks. I mean, quick, very fast side tangent. If you've never read Star Trek, the Star Trek New Frontier series, and boy, you want some old school great Star Trek that respects, like, next gen and that whole era of Trek, you are in for a treat. It's absolutely the thing to read. I dare I say it's even better reads than Shatner's novels, and that's saying a lot for me. But man, Peter David was a fucking genius. Yeah, unbelievable. But so I guess that becomes the concern. I mean, just to get back to it, is that like without consistency of some kind. Now, I mean, you're raising a good point, because also Star Wars, even under Disney, has put out so much stuff.
Yeah.
And there's really only like maybe 3 or 4 major moments where things got retconned in over a decade. And with all that hours and all that writing, the comics, all that is an impressive feat. I mean, the thing is I think people still get pissed though, because clearly like they consciously broke canon, like Filoni did.
Yeah.
And
right.
whatever else. And
Right.
that's the issue. But go ahead if you have
Well,
comments.
I mean, even within Disney Star Wars, I mean, we've already seen what, in my opinion, is the worst of all worlds. We've seen bad writing, bad adherence to, quote unquote canon, and just, I mean, the Rise of Skywalker is literally the worst thing Star Wars has ever done. It is the sloppiest, ugliest, smelliest piece of shit.
We promised that we would do this. We'll do it after we're done talking about Andor.
So my point being in this is that we've gotten through that. We survived it.
Yeah.
We can get through anything now.
Yeah. 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 Well, it's a great time to bring in the world between worlds, but no. That just solves everything. We're just waiting.
I gotta say, like, that was like your primary concern with that particular, narrative device when Filoni introduced it.
Yeah.
And you were afraid that it was going to get abused. And thankfully it hasn't been, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it really hasn't yet. I've admittedly been waiting for it.
They have treated it very sparingly and used it in, meaningful and impactful moments. As much as people shit on the Ahsoka show, those moments where Ahsoka, meets Anakin in the world between worlds is like prime Star Wars shit right there. I mean,
fucking awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I think, like in a lot of ways, I think Damien is like a little bit too harsh on Filoni, because that's the good stuff.
Yeah, because he easily could have abused that, and yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. So I was, I'll admit it. I was a bit miffed when I was like, oh no. And you could just see it, that it's like, oh, they're rewriting how those two met, how K2SO and Cassian met. And you can see where, oh, they retconned Rebels with, with Mon Mothma, giving her speech, and
I like Tony's phrasing where he says he hijacked Rebels. I want more hijacking. And we just got flagged by the NSA.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I mean, and again, he did a great job. Like, he told a better story, and so, you can, I mean, you are giving him a pass, and you can give him a pass. And me, again, I guess the last thing I want to say on this is that, I'm sort of, and you've tried to, over the years, we've been sitting down having lunch or whatever you and I were doing, Rob, and you're like trying to convince me, like, Brian, just take what you like and forget about the rest. It's fine. And I've gotten to the point where I've realized that this concept of canon is a fluke. Like, sure, Babylon 5 pulled it off. Star Trek sort of did it within like the specific, like within the TV series and movies in a way. But like those are one-offs. Most things are not made that way. Like Battlestar Galactica, the original one. had plenty of contradictions. I mean, like most of science fiction that you watch, there's tons of contradictory stuff that occurs in it. And honestly, even within Star Trek, folks, you weren't there. Like they literally wrote what they called nitpickers guides for these series because people were so passionate about the shit, and they're like, well, this doesn't make sense, and this doesn't tie into here, and and like this is a contradiction and all this stuff. Yeah, I mean, so like we knew, but I guess we kind of and maybe I've come full circle to that. Where just like you realize, okay, but the passion is there, and as long as the passion is there, and it clearly was the Tony Gilroy, as long as the passion is there, fine, take me for the ride. As long as it's what the creator wants, like fine, take me for the ride. And so, yeah, I've just come to accept that canon is kind of like a fluke, and I just can't expect it in everything. That said, really quickly, ironically, AI could solve all of this. Feed all of the fucking working shooting scripts into AI and into Notebook LM, and it could, it can make sure that you don't screw it up. Rob's just rubbing his face. It's like, oh God, no. Give me what you got, Rob.
So there's this scene in a game called Mass Effect, which I'm sure most of you have heard of and played, where Commander Shepard talks to the Reapers for the first time.
Oh boy.
And the Reapers explain to him that all of your technology comes from us, and you've developed along the lines that we've chosen.
Yep. Don't think too hard
really
about that one.
You really want to railroad all of history and culture into the hands of a few billionaires. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Great plan.
Yeah. Yep. So, well, boy, you're hitting it. And actually, speaking again of Daniel Walter, or Damian Walter, he actually kind of hits at this in some of these videos. So folks, they're linked in the show notes and you can check those out. But he kind of hits at this, and I don't think he says it directly, but again, he hints at it very much, is, like the classic line of, he doesn't say this, but I know it, like the medium is the message, right? And so you can only see and hear like what the medium allows. And I don't just like the YouTube algorithm. I mean that like you can only experience things in the ways that the camera lens, can actually allow for, or that the CGI can allow for, or whatever. And so you're actually very much trapped in a way, through, I guess you could say, your senses or your readily available senses. And again, the technology that is before you. And I think you're hitting at a huge point, because actually, and I think Andor actually deconstructs this whole idea, or really this hidden trilogy, ending off with A New Hope, really hits at this, is that like, holy shit, like you got to get out of the material, because all that's going to do is you're just going to end up with the Death Star and planets explode. Like that is that's the course. That's the end stage of all this.
Yeah. So there's only one other franchise that I can think of that has accomplished this.
Okay.
And it's actually running in the background when I'm looking at your.
Oh, that. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
And we see what happened to that, the way that message literally got co-opted by everything it was trying to fight against it. I mean,
yep.
The right wing literally uses the term red pill to explain the transmission of their ideas.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
And that's what I worry about with Andor, is that somebody basically, like I said, is able to co-opt that messaging in some way. And I'm sure they're going to try really hard to do it. And I hope they fucking fall flat on their faces every time they do. But nonetheless, I and one of the brilliant things about The Matrix 2 is kind of like, it very much promotes this idea that Philip K. Dick had, and that it's the even though you're trapped within sort of like this prison reality, there's the there's still an aspect of truth for you to grasp and hold on to. Philip K. Dick referred to as the God in the kipple.
Right.
And the kipple is basically just shit, garbage, trash.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And I think that's what Andor is in the end.
Yeah. That's kind of a great way also of hinting at like part of what I was saying earlier about like somehow the goddess kind of sneaks into art, even if you realize it or not. It's the truth, and the goddess being truth, like the truth is still there.
Yeah, Sophia, literally.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Literally. So yeah, that's a great point, and great point about the Matrix. Like 100%. That is the other like subversive trilogy that showed, okay, this is where things get to. And yeah, that's a phenomenal parallel actually, now that you say it, because like, and this is a point that I think most people don't get with the Matrix, because it also plays in a very materialist sense. Like, oh yeah, all revolution is done through the computer and all this stuff. And hey, folks, I mean, you're listening to two of the biggest tech guys on the planet that have ever walked the earth. Okay, so don't confuse us. Okay, yeah, Wayland Yutani on this. There's materialism for you. No. But the Matrix, everybody rips on the two sequels, the third sequel, or the fourth movie you can rip on all day, and rightfully so. But Resurrection, or wait, fuck, not Resurrection. Anyway, the original trilogy gets to the point. The sequels are important because they basically show you like, okay, so Neo doesn't just have these powers in the Matrix, because once he's outside of the Matrix, he was still able to like shut down one of the Sentinels, and that's the thing, is that like, okay, yeah, you got to stop thinking like machines, and I think this hidden Star Wars trilogy it has that same exact message, which is incredible that it has that same message. But that's ultimately also, I think, like the message of the Matrix is that like, getting out of the Matrix doesn't mean you're less powerful. You're actually way more powerful, and have power over, from within yourself. Anyway,
yeah,
don't want to get lost.
I do think some of it that gets lost in the last movie, and even kind of like here again, like I think even some of the co-opting began before the trilogy was finished, because you have some, like. For one, I'm sure that studios demanded you have this big human versus robot battle, which I think was totally unnecessary. Yep. And two, you had some like really weird, like explicitly Christian symbology. Yep. Going on in that movie.
Yeah, they played with a lot of that for sure. And whether that was to like sink people in more or what, yeah,
I don't know, because I mean, it seems totally antithetical to everything that the Wachowskis had said before or since.
I see what you mean. Yeah, that is a conversation that I think a breakdown of that trilogy, and particularly the trilogy, fuck whatever the hell that other thing was that got made. I mean, it's not all negative, but and as satire, it's great, but
yeah, I don't think she had a choice, really.
No,
like they said that they were going to make it with her help or not, and she basically, tried to give them what they wanted, and kind of point out within the movie itself that it was all bullshit.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I have no ill will towards Lana Wachowski for any reason whatsoever, and I mean, and certainly not, in that, because I think she just went with a scorched earth policy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. She's like, oh, really?
Right.
I'll nuke this whole thing.
Yeah. Try to make any more after this.
Yeah, right. I'm going to make this so bad. You don't understand. Woo. Yeah, I like that. Talk about hijacking. Yeah. So, but excellent point that about the Matrix, which I think might be. I think Star Wars is going to be, like I picture 500 years from now, if, most of humanity is still here. 500 years from now, I think Star Wars is going to be treated like Shakespeare. and I say that in the abstract sense, because I'm not saying that Shakespeare should be treated with so much reverence. I think there's a lot of problems within it. But I think it's going to be at that level. And I think The Matrix is probably the only other thing that's going to end up holding true. Thoughts on that, Rob?
Yeah. You might want to add Tolkien to that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. I think I already think of him as in that vein,
Right.
like,
yeah. He's, I mean, it's kind of, I mean, like, this book came out in the 60s. So really, like, it's a long time ago to, people are young, but like in the greater scheme of things, it's like very recent.
Yeah, no, I hate to say that Babylon 5 would be barely remembered, but regardless, the trinity of things that will be talked about, over the next few hundred years are definitely going to be Star Wars, The Matrix, and Tolkien. I don't even think Star Trek's going to get talked about. Like, I just,
not the way it's going.
No, that's it. Like, it's so funny, I think, how little that actually gets brought up now. Like it's completely lost its cultural power. It's
I know. There's like, I sometimes I feel like the 90s is like a memory hole.
Yeah.
Like, people forget just how big The Next Generation was.
Biggest show on TV.
Yeah.
It was that and Seinfeld.
Well,
that was it.
Right. It was just like one of the biggest cultural icons of that entire decade.
Yep. And it was science fiction, which is also like, at the time was unheard of. Like, that's not how it works.
Yeah, like I say, it's on the level of Return of the King winning the Oscars.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I can't believe that. Like, and it's a funny thing. I mean, I guess we're kind of side tangenting here, but I think it's I don't hear other people talking about it, so I'm glad we are. Like, when I get introduced to new people, so first off, as a podcaster, that has a fair audience, usually I don't, look, I'm not coming from like some kind of high horse position. I'm not, because this actually annoys me, but like, most of the time people already know everything about me, or know plenty enough about me, because I also wear my heart on my sleeve. And so I'm not used to having to like describe myself anymore, if that makes sense. And so when I meet new people, like, it's actually strange to me, and even in interactions with them, like, I never hear people talk about themselves as Star Trek fans anymore. I never hear that, ever. Like, it just doesn't come up. And what bothers me even more, I was actually just thinking about this the other day. Most people just know me for Star Wars, or they will, they'll look at me and like, oh, he's a Star Wars fan or something like that. But like, no, I'm way more of a Star Trek fan, but like by leaps and bounds. Like, I can barely, like, Star Trek is my fucking Bible. You know what I mean? But I don't even describe myself as a Star Trek fan anymore. And that's weird. Like that's really weird. I mean, do you feel me, Rob? Dude,
I feel you so much that it hurts.
Yeah. What happened? Like, how the hell did that happen?
Like, unfortunately, I think to a degree, this is something that every generation experiences, like our increasing irrelevance in the world.
Yeah, cultural relevancy, sure. But
yeah,
I mean, like,
so I think
Star Wars fans.
There's more. Well, yeah, but it's like I said, it's so huge that like every new generation is a different fandom.
Yeah.
Star Trek hasn't really kind of crested that hump.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird.
Because people who like Star Trek now, like, it's very weird. They're kind of like, no, you have to like all of it, or you're like, you're not a real Star Trek fan.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that to me is really weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the irony is, like, that kind of intolerance didn't exist back in the day. Like,
yeah, no, it was like, if there's any intolerance, it was just like, oh, you either like Star Trek or you like Star Wars, and
right.
I'm like, you can't like both. We have to fight on guard.
Yeah, yeah, Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, like, there were so few people, partly because it was hard to see. I mean, I get that, like, who liked the animated series back in the day, and there's still not many people like it, and that's fine. Like, I accept it, but that's the thing, is I accept it. Like, it was fine.
It, like, even though it reached syndication, it didn't really have the kind of like the replay that the original series did.
Yeah, sure. No, I totally agreed on that. Totally agreed. But I'm just saying that, like, there were Star Trek fans I knew. There were people I knew who they really liked Deep Space Nine. They didn't so much like, they honestly, they didn't like Next Gen as much as they liked Deep Space Nine, because Deep Space Nine was like in one place. You know what I mean? And like, there was, and that was okay. Like, everybody was just like, yeah, that's cool. Good for you.
I even struggle with which I like more. Like, they're, like, I think Deep Space Nine overall is better social commentary and, in some cases, better written. But at the same time, Next Generation kind of feels like home.
Well, yeah, totally. I mean, and that's the secret sauce. Like, what's the secret? Like I said earlier, secret sauce of Star Wars is that it's cool. The secret sauce of Star Trek: The Next Generation is that it's the world you want to live in.
Right.
Like, you want that to be home so badly.
Right.
Every
You want
aspect
those people to be your friends, because
yes,
like, they're good people who, like, would enrich your life.
Yes, and you want to live in that world where, you know what, it's going to be okay. Like, and you're not worried about paying the rent. And it's like, it's all right. We got food for you. We got a replicator right here. Oh, something wrong with you medically? Got a hypo spray. It's fine.
And to date, I'm looking at one of the few people who makes me feel that way.
Oh, brother, don't make me cry on camera. That's incredibly sweet. You're making me blush in every episode. God damn it. But yeah, thank you. Okay. I want to recognize that. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, I don't want to get too stuck on it, but I haven't been able to really talk about this with anyone. I mean, like, I could remember when I was living in a different part of New Hampshire where, like, it was more walkable. You could, like, walk to places. And, I wore this hoodie, like this Star Trek hoodie, that looked like a Next Gen uniform, or, I mean, it was like the movie uniforms with the gray.
Right.
And, like, I would walk to the local gas station, get a coffee, whatever, all this kind of stuff. And around town, people just called me Starfleet, like that was a thing, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
And I loved it. I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah. I used to wear this biker jacket that had the comm badge that I'd put on it.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, I kind of got, like, the similar treatment. People didn't call me Starfleet, but they would acknowledge it.
Yeah. And that's my point, is that it's just weird now. Like, I don't feel like anybody really talks about it. And I also, like, I'm more bothered that I don't identify myself with it anymore, because holy hell, most of my life, I mean, I'm 44 now, since I was 6 years old, if you ask me what are you, Brian? Like, I'm a fucking Trekkie, goddammit. Like, I mean, I would say that so fast and so hard. Like, that was my complete identity.
It's unfortunately, it's become a cultural artifact. And I'm not going to lie, like, listening to kids these days kind of make me feel pretty ancient.
Yeah. Well,
and like I said, I think every generation experiences, and I'm not saying, like, the kids are bad and they're stupid and they don't know what they're missing. I'm not saying any of that, because that's just a bunch of generational bullshit that gets spammed out into the culture to, keep us all divided.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, and this is something I've also, come to terms with, because, again, there's a lot of, like, ancient rivalries, like you mentioned earlier. It's like, are you into Star Trek or are you into Star Wars? That we used to, like, accept back in the 90s. Like, are you a metalhead or are you into rap? Like, honestly, today, and you can see it with the kids, that they listen to everything. They listen to shit that's like 60 years old, and because it's all available to them. You know what I mean? There isn't, like, this faux scarcity anymore. Or real at the time.
And here again, I think kind of a lot of what's getting fed to them is, like, so, you know, homogenized. Like, it doesn't, like, to me, it doesn't really stand out as anything particularly unique. It's
Right.
just a mishmash of everything that's come before.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And that's not their fault.
No, right. No, it's not. It's not. Again, medium is the message. Like, what's getting fed through the algorithm, what's, like, you know, basically being, like, shoved onto them, you know,
Right.
what's available even. Yeah. You know, I tell you, we talk about this and I can't help but feel, and part of this comes from, again, we'll reference it again, the Damien Walter video, or his little series on Andor, and talking about how, like, Star Wars is this, really, it's a hyper capitalist, like, galaxy, you know, and
yeah, you know, he makes a point about that in his video too, that really kind of, like, I feel like I always knew, but it's sort of kind of like, oh yeah, wow. I mean, because, like, he talks about how, like, you know, people's pension funds are invested into this.
Yeah. Right.
You know, like it's, there's that much writing on it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And
yeah.
I think that's the way, kind of, like, you know, the 0.01% have managed to co-opt so much of the culture, is because they somehow were able to railroad everybody to, you know, put their money into the stock market.
Yeah.
Like, I keep on having people tell me, oh no, you got to, you know, like, you got to get your money in, you know, 401k or a mutual fund, or, you know, some bullshit thing that just feeds the system.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And it's so weird to me, because, like, some of the most evil and insidious shit that I've seen on the internet is people explaining the secret trick to investing, and how, like, there's this one YouTube channel called Diary of a CEO, and he's talking to one of these guys, and the guy was like, I was so mad that nobody explained this to me when I was a kid, and, you know, like, I could have been, you know, like, improving the life of me and my family and stuff like this, and, like, in my community. He keeps on talking about his you know, like, this was the secret, you know, strategy to enriching the lives of your community. And I'm like, if you actually fucking gave a fuck, you would want to tear this goddamn system down and burn it to the ground.
Yes. It's the only response to that. Yes.
And that's what I love about Andor.
Yeah. Well, I think it's hitting at that.
That's the message.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's hitting at that. And the sad part is that the sequel trilogy honestly fucks up this whole story.
That's what I'm saying. It's the biggest piece of shit in the way. It is the most corporate fucking garbage.
Yeah.
They could have possibly constructed. It is like, it is, it's designed to make you dumber.
Yes. Well, I mean, because what it does is, again, it just repeats the cycle.
Yeah.
And, like, it's like, wait, but Luke Skywalker's still alive. This shouldn't have happened again. You know, like, if we're to accept the premise, and I think it's a beautiful premise of that hidden trilogy, you know, we're like, okay, we got to get beyond politics. Politics leads to the Death Star every time, you know, and we have to get beyond that. What ends up happening? No, the New Republic, they just lose their fucking minds too, you know, and they screw everything up, and they don't pay attention to what the First Order is doing or something, like, whatever, you know, like, it completely fucks up the story. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, like, I can appreciate the slaying of sacred cows.
Sure.
I really do. But that doesn't mean you need to castrate the cow and feed it its own genitals.
Right. Yeah. Well, yes. And, you know, and the other part that I want to bring up is that as we're talking about this, all of this, I can't help but feel that, like, I can't help but get conspiratorial about Star Trek, because because it showed a different way. Like it gave another option that wasn't capitalism, and it wasn't socialism, it wasn't Marxism. No, it wasn't. Like, stop, people. Stop.
I've said this before on the show, and I really believe this. I think if kids today understood what our perception of the future was going to be, they would be even angrier than they are now.
Yeah. I know.
Rightly so.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, even our generation cracks a joke. Oh, no flying cars. No. No, you should be saying no replicators. What the fuck?
Yeah. But it wasn't just about post scarcity. It wasn't just about material. It was yeah. Well, it was everything we've been talking about for the last 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, a part of me can't help but feel like that basically, the what's the term I want to use? The bean counters? I don't know. Like the powers that be. Yeah, I think they saw Star Trek and they said, oh, no. We've got to knock this one out of the cultural milieu. Like this one, like if we're building culture now, this needs to be destroyed because it's the antithesis, of what we need. Like it is the anti-political gangster. It is the anti-corporate gangster. And that's basically what we're dealing with now, and like Andor, I think, had that message, of warning you about that this is how it's going, and it's just part more of that miracle of how the hell did that get made? How did they allow that to air on TV? I mean, it just shows how stupid the powers that be are because like you said, they don't watch TV anyway, but like they didn't even see it hit them,
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I really do think that Andor should be Kathleen Kennedy's, legacy. Especially since, she's going to be stepping down. She's not exiting Lucasfilm, but she's stepping down. I think this is what she should be remembered for, basically making happen. Not giving her credit for the message itself, but there's some serious kudos to be giving to letting that message get out.
Yeah. I mean, it's a miracle. To quote Flash Gordon, he's a miracle. It's saved every one of us. But yeah, I don't know how this happened, and it just, boy, there's so much of it that I think this is going to sit with people, and it's going to start to sink in, just like old school Star Trek did, where I really think it completely changed civilization, and my hope is I don't want people to get violent, because certainly Andor would suggest that as some kind of a path, but
don't say
fuck. Yeah. Son of a anyway. Yeah, I don't want people getting violent or anything, but like to at the very least, like grok what's happening around them, and what all of this is built on.
Well, I mean, it's definitely, a wake up call. Like, there are our options are dwindling.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't want to end on a too depressing note, but I know we're going to wrap up soon here. I guess I want to ask, do you have, like, I'll just ask, we'll ask some kind of like fun questions here quick. Who is your favorite character in this series? Who really, like, who hit it for you? I mean, I can start off if you want to think about it a little bit.
No, I think I know who, but it's going to be kind of a weird choice.
Do it.
Brasso.
Brasso?
Yeah, wow. He was just such a good dude.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Like,
right.
I mean, he's the kind of person that, like, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah. Yep. Well said. Now I feel terrible for my choice.
Sorry, I'm always going straight for the marrow,
I love it. I love it. Never change. I have to say Cyril. Like, Cyril was not just like, first off, that actor, put him in everything. Like, fuck putting Pedro Pascal and shit. Put this guy in every goddamn thing. This is one of the greatest actors ever walked the earth. Unreal. How great. I mean, his arc was so well written, of course, but like his delivery was top notch. And this is a guy who, like, yeah, I mean, if he never met Cassian, he would have become I think he would have become a rebel, you know, like he would have.
Right. I mean, you almost get the sense that he was about ready to like become a rebel if he hadn't, you know, run up, you know, to Cassian at Norman.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when he snaps in front of Deidre, holy shit! I mean, it's just like, I mean, a chill fills the room. Like,
the both of them really. Like, I want to see more of those actors, and like you said, like in everything, and you know, half of it is the writing, and you know, like I gotta say, these are probably some of the most developed Imperial characters in all of Star Wars.
Yep, I agree, and they work so well. I mean, that was part of my problem with this, you know, with season 2 basically being a greatest hits album. It's like, no, give me more of Cyril and Deidre. Like I want to see them, you know, like living, doing their thing. Like her moment with Cyril's mother, again, is still like one of the just most amazing bits of drama, like that is so well done, just amazing. But yeah, no, Cyril took it for me, because this is a guy who, like, I mean, again, that character arc was amazing, and the actor was absolutely phenomenal through the whole thing. And yeah, I gotta admit, I loved the head of the ISB. I thought he was really like,
I was kind of sad that he offed himself.
Yeah, it was sad that he offed himself. Yeah, I agree.
But it made sense for the character.
Yeah,
like, you know, like, and the way they did that with putting, you know, Nemik's manifesto in there, and him basically, you know, coming to the realization that it was all pointless was just kind of like beautiful.
Yep. And yeah, he basically, like, he's listening to the manifesto, and like you just get the sense, like, wait a minute.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Nemik's, it's Nemik's ultimate, you know, revenge.
Yes. Yeah. And it's, I mean, he is that point where the realization that everything ends with the Death Star. You know, like all of this will always end in the Death Star, and that's not good. That's not what he was, you know, even if you could say however evil you think he is as the head of the ISB, like, even he knew, no, this isn't how things were meant to go. You know, this isn't how things were meant to be. Very much he's one of those Thrawn-like characters, you know, where you can almost relate with them in their understanding of, like, okay, they reached these heights of tremendous power, but they had a cause at one point of why they were doing this.
Right. Yeah. And he was a true believer. I mean, like, he really believed in sort of like, you know, the order and efficiency of the machine. Right.
Even though, you know, again, he realizes this always ends in death. You know, he was a true believer, you know, I mean, and I think that's clear with his relationship with Yularen, and, you know, and because, I mean, that was a hard part.
Yeah.
And right. I mean, how do you watch Yularen? Like, how can you see him as a bad guy? You know what I mean? Like he's, well, anyway.
Yeah, it's here again. It's one of those things. If you don't have the context of the Clone Wars, like, you're missing out on a really interesting character.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. One last bit that I do want to get out there, because I haven't really heard anybody talk about this either. And it's very, and you can tell me what you think on it, Rob, if you disagree at all. I thought the Redonium storyline was just weird. You know, where like,
Saw's weird.
Well, yeah, Saw's weird, right? I mean, and Saw's basically supposed to be, you know, Che Guevara, as well as, well, Andor's supposed to be that too. But it was just a very weird sequence. Like, what happened with that? And I think it was basically saying, like, I think Redonium was supposed to be oil, like it was supposed to represent oil, and that was like an aspect of the story, that like oil is an addiction and that like that's part of it for some sides of this. I mean, that's the only thing I could figure.
Well, I'll put a different spin on it, and it's kind of it's the insanity that is the nature of violent revolutions.
I like that.
It's the inherent contradiction that you're trying to preserve life by destroying it.
Right. I like that a lot. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think all of that kind of put together like maybe makes a little more sense. It just seemed to be like something they just like dropped. Like what happened with that? It was like such a big deal, but then it just stops. But whatever. Forrest Whitaker, of course, was fantastic in this. As Saw again. And overall with the production and everything about it, like I really don't have any complaints. I absolutely loved, and you raised a great point, and we definitely recommend this to people as well, to watch Andor Declassified on YouTube, which is an official behind the scenes production by Disney. Some of the best things to understand about the show are said in that really should have been said in the show. And Rob, you were the one that pointed this out to me, and I watched it, where Stellan Skarsgård, beautifully said that, the nature of revolutions is empathy. Like that's why you engage in revolution, is because of empathy. And it was just it was a really beautiful moment. I wish he did say it in the show. I mean, any other thoughts on watching that, Rob?
No, I that's pretty much.
That's the point.
Yeah. I will say that, I mean, if you're looking for more Andor, you're craving the things that we're talking about. There's a couple of movies I can recommend.
Yeah, do it.
That being The Thin Red Line.
Oh, yes.
Children of Men. And there's one other one I can't. It escaped my brain. God damn it!
Shit.
But those are two good ones to watch if you're looking for more Andor.
Yeah. I'll definitely. Thin Red Line. A great war movie.
It is the most anti-war movie you'll ever see.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Like really, a great war movie should convince you to never engage in it. I mean, I've regularly stated that the prequel trilogy is like the greatest anti-war movie of all time. Thin Red Line is right up there, I think.
Yeah.
In that number, and sadly, like real anti-war movies are so far between.
Right.
And especially in modern day. What Thin Red Line was that in the 90s or is that in the aughts?
I think it was the early aughts.
Yeah. But yeah, phenomenal film. I off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything, comparable, to bring in like if you want more of that kind of Andor message, it sadly just is so very rare. But anyway, so there you have it, folks. I think we ended up talking more about like the themes of Andor than what actually went on in it. But like we said, I mean, when you give it the praise of like, this is as good as Star Wars can get, or to some degree, maybe we could get something better in the future. I don't know. I mean, what more can you say? So are we going to stop wearing Imperial gear, Rob?
No.
I know. It's like, wait, but they're space Nazis. No. Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, maybe that's the point,
Right. It's the warning.
Right. And I kind of want to be in your face about it.
Yeah. It's like, look out for this shit. Maybe if they ever make like good Star Trek clothes, I'll start wearing them, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. But so, oh well. Well, then I think we'll leave this one at that. For the next one, I think we planned on doing it for this one. We were going to do another ranking of the Star Wars films. And I think we'll actually end up doing that maybe in the next episode, the next time you and I get together, Rob, because we're due for an updated ranking. And honestly, maybe Andor should be considered a film, this hidden trilogy concept, as much as it's clickbait or internet clickbait, I think there's also something very real to it. People are picking up on it and it's there. So I wonder where those would sit, or where Andor as a movie would sit on that list. But Rob, as always, an absolute pleasure. I think we saved the world again, and well, we've got 100 years worth of content to cover. So
if not the world, at least our sanity.
Yeah, right. For a little while.
Right.
All right, everyone. We will see all of you on the other side.